Sorry for the little delay, everyone. I forgot to send Jose out the link, so sorry for the little delay, everyone. Let me turn that down. That way, I can be my own moderator. And I'll give a little bit of time just so that I can let anybody, if anybody wants to file in and check it out. Make sure you guys say hello as you come into the room, please. That way we can involve you in the conversation. I like for this to be an interactive lesson as much as possible. So I see a couple people we have in here already. So we will go on ahead and get started. First and foremost, I'm going to give all honor and glory to our Heavenly Father, Yahweh. We do so in the name of His Son, Yahweh Shai. For those who do not know, Yahweh Shai is the Hebrew for the man most of you guys know as Jesus Christ, or in some circles, Jesus the Christ. But we're not going to get into that tonight. This little fun ribbing out there. Tonight's topic, if you guys cannot tell from the headlines, I put, what the hell is the spirit of Amalek? And I go to that because it is a doctrine that's been out, that's been preached far and wide. The first place I've ever heard of this spirit of Amalek would be from rabbinic readings and teachers and stuff like that, which I do not attest to following rabbinic teachings or rabbinic Judaism. But let me pull up one of those videos so you guys can hear the doctrine itself, what they're talking about. So this doesn't sound like it's just something coming out of left field. As you guys can see, I gave a couple of thumbnails there, but I want you all to hear it. I want you guys to hear some of this doctrine. This gentleman I'm going to show you, his name is Vladimir Savchuk. He's probably one of the biggest people in this that push this movement. We're not going to play the whole thing because it's kind of long. I mean, if we wanted to do a piece for piece breakdown, we could. But if you see one of these doctrines, it's pretty much the same as all of them. They're all preaching the same thing. They're, for the most part, going to about 2 different verses. Jose, make sure you have
Genesis 36.
Well, yeah, we'll get there. I think it's let's see, Exodus 16, 18. We'll hear it. He'll mention in a second, because they always go to 2 verses in particular. A verse in the book of Exodus and a verse in the book of Deuteronomy. And so we're gonna let you guys hear one of those people break it down from their perspective. And then we are going to go and debunk why this is a false teaching and a false doctrine. So let me share my screen real quick. Let's see. Spirit of Amalek. And, one of the good things about this, you guys always get to get a live reaction from Jose, because a lot of times I come up with these things and I have something in mind. I tell him something, he starts prepping for something else. And then the last minute, I change up on him and give him a different topic altogether to go into. Would you say that's correct, sir?
Yeah, literally, I found out what we were talking about tonight on the way home from driving to school, driving from school to home. So I like the surprise.
Yeah, he literally found out maybe about an hour ago what I decided to talk about. And the bad on my side, that I knew about this topic crossed my mind earlier today. I just never could find the time to be able to break away and shoot a text or a phone call until I got out. And as you guys know, I'm on the West Coast. So by the time I get out of work, it's a lot later for him. So let me pop this up on the screen. It was something else that we're going to talk about, some foolishness or silliness with a pastor in KC who's basically trying to get his congregation to buy him a mulatto and calling them broke children and all that. But that's the Christian church. That's the kind of stuff which is always going on. It's just a matter of when it goes viral or not. So now that we got that out of the way, the topic that we're going to go into, that we could have broke it down and had a little fun with it. We're going to have fun in another way with this one here. So let me stop running my mouth and put this up on the screen for you all. And let me know if the sound is okay.
A short word with you about a spirit of Amalek. Spirit of Amalek. I believe this spirit is on the loose right now, and some of you are battling with this spirit, and I believe the Lord wants to set you free and also empower you and give you the tools that you need to be able to fight against this spirit, overcome this spirit, and utterly destroy that spirit. Come on, somebody, drop that in a comment right now. I will attack Amalek. I will attack Amalek. So who is this Amalek? It's not your ex-boyfriend. It's not your neighbor. It's not somebody maybe that you currently don't like, or somebody causing drama in your church.
Jose, what is your thoughts when you hear him keep saying, we have to attack Amalek?
Are you okay? How are you going to attack yourself?
Yeah, I know. But because you got to remember, these people, I'll let him extrapolate his whole doctrine out. But here we go. Yeah, I know you were like, what? But this is a doctrine that's been preached out quite a bit. And I'll kind of expound on it after he explains it.
Amalek, the Bible says, he was a grandson of Esau. He was a grandson of Esau. And he was the very unique enemy that Israel had. If you have your Bible, let's go to Exodus chapter 17 verse 8. Somebody drop that in a comment right now. Exodus 17 verse 8 for other people to take notes of it. And if you're learning something from this message, I want you to drop in the comments right away. Something that you're learning, constantly stay engaged with us. Don't just watch. Even if you're watching from home and you're just kind of relaxing, you're probably still on your phone. So watch on your screen and comment on your phone, but stay engaged with us. Exodus chapter 17 verse 8, it says the following. Now Amalek came and fought with Israel. And then we see how he fought. Moses said to Joshua, choose some men and go out and fight with Amalek. Come on, somebody say, fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on a mount of the hill with the rod in my hand. So Joshua did as Moses said to him and fought with the Amalek. Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. And it was when Moses held up his hand that Israel prevailed. When he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. Moses' hands became heavy, so he took a stone. They took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it, and Aaron and Hur supported his hands, one on one side and the other on the other side, and his hands were steady until going down of the sun. So Joshua defeated Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. Watch this, verse 14, Exodus 17 verse 14. Then the Lord said to Moses, write this for a memorial in the book and recount it in the hearing of Joshua. I will utterly blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. And Moses built an altar and called its name, the Lord is my banner. And he said, because the Lord has sworn, the Lord will have a war with Amalek from generation to generation. The meaning Amalek is going to be a generational problem. This generation is facing this same spirit. As the generation of Joshua, as generation of Saul, as the generation of Mordecai and Esther who were fighting descendants of Amalek. Today you might be fighting a spirit of Amalek. But you're not only going to be fighting the spirit. God says, I have a war with Amalek from generation to generation. Somebody drop amen right now in the comments below. Say amen. Drop a fire emoji. I'm going to read one more verse, and that is Deuteronomy 25 and verse 18. Somebody drop that in a comment. Deuteronomy 25 verse 18. If you're ready for the Lord to deliver you from that spirit in Jesus' mighty name. Deuteronomy 25 and verse 18. And it says the following. Okay, well, that's a wrong verse. 17 and 18. 17. Oh, no, it's the right verse. I just got a new Bible, and so it's not colored yet, so I'm trying to figure out where is what. Remember what Amalek did to you on the way as you were coming out of Egypt, how he met you. So watch this. Who is this Amalek? He met you on the way and attacked your rear ranks, all the stragglers at your rear, when you were tired and weary, and he did not fear God. Therefore it shall be, when the Lord your God has given you rest from your enemies all around in the land which the Lord your God has given to you to possess as an inheritance, you will blot out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven. You shall not forget. Who is an Amalek? So I'm going to share with you just very practical 7 simple things about the spirit of Amalek. Number 1, Amalek is a demon that attacks you when you are weak and vulnerable. The Bible says Israel just came out of Egypt. They celebrated an Exodus. God split the Red Sea. They were rejoicing. And then there were people on the outskirts of Israel's camp. They're called stragglers. It's the people who were struggling. It's the people who had a hard time keeping up. It's the people who probably had children. Maybe they had some sick cows and sheep, and they were keeping up but not fast enough. And guess what Amalek does? He attacks.
Oh yeah, Jose, anytime you want me to stop, if there's one you want to weigh in on, please let me know.
Let this guy.
I'm just going to let him roll a little bit more.
Let
him roll a little bit more.
Yes.
And then we'll try to unpack some of the stuff that he said.
The sooner he finishes, the sooner he stops.
Yeah, I think it was like the 7-minute or 8-minute mark when I was going to decide to cut off. Because he rambles on for 26 minutes and 41 seconds and literally only brings up those 2 verses.
Terrible.
Yes.
The weak and the vulnerable, and he begins to kill them. That's what Amalek is. Amalek is a demon that he is on your tail. He is right behind you, and when you're strong, he leaves you out. But the moment you become vulnerable, the moment you become tired, the moment you become exhausted, he comes and he attacks you with the spirit of depression. He attacks you with the spirit of doubt. He attacks you with the spirit of confusion. He attacks you with a nightmare. He attacks you with the spiritual spouse at night. He attacks you with his tactics. He attacks the weak and the vulnerable. Amalek did exactly the same thing when David left. The Bible says he left his family in a city, small little town, and David and men were gone. And guess what Amalek did? He didn't fight David. He fought the women and the children. He took them captive and he plundered everything. Amalek is a demon. Amalek is a spiritual force, and he attacks you when you're weak. He attacks you when things are not going well.
Okay, that's enough. I can't do any more of that.
Same.
I can't do any more. I mean, that's about as far. I thought it was like the 7-minute mark, but no, I mean that's enough. Yeah. So your thoughts on that, real quick. What do you think about what you just heard? That and we'll go into scriptures to substantiate our point of view, but that.
For the most part,
the spirit of Amalek.
For the most part, he's pretty spot on. He's just omitting that this is a group of people that are around today.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying is all of these different people who preach this doctrine. It's not about Amalek. Well, Amalek, in their understanding, is a spirit that's put upon people. Now, the problem with that is...
What a cute way to hide.
Yeah, what it is there is a spirit on Amalek and on Amalek's descendants Amalek is not the spirit. Amalek is not the demon. The spirit is on Amalek and his generations. What is it? Revelations 22. That I want. And let me pull that up real quick. I want to start off with the scripture first and foremost.
Revelations 22.
Yeah. I want to start off with, what is it? So I'm trying to grab it to put it up on the screen for everybody. All right. So yeah, let's drop him down. Go to Revelations 22 and 19, sir.
This is Book of Revelation, chapter 22. And
Wait 1 sec. Let me put it on the screen first.
Mm-hmm.
That way that they can read along. And for those who are not in here live, who might watch this later on, they'll be able to see it on the screen and make it easier for them to find it. So let's start with this here. Go ahead.
Book of Revelation, chapter 22 and verse 19. And if any man shall take away from the words of the prophecy, And if any man shall take away from the words of the book of this prophecy, Yahweh shall take away his part out of the book of life, and out of the holy city, and from the things which are written in this book.
And the reason why I wanted this scripture read first is this is clear. Deuteronomy also tells you the same thing in the Torah, in the law. You are not to add or take away from this book. When it is talking about Amalek, and it's talking about the nation he descends from, Edom, and his great grandfather Esau, which he descends from, it tells you that this is a nation, a group of people. It does not tell you to turn evil people in the Bible into spirits and demons, and then just say that, well, everybody else can take on the spirit of this person. That's not what that is adding to the Bible, because nowhere in there it claims that Amalek is a spirit. All right. Anything you wanted to add onto that, sir?
No.
All right. So let's drop this down real quick. Let's see, what else do I have here? I wanted to start with that scripture first. What do I have here? I think it was Genesis 25 I want to go to first. Oh, I guess I don't have that one up. Let me drop this down and get it on the screen. So let's get out of here.
25.
Yeah, just to give me a second. Let me get there on the screen.
Okay.
Because we need to go to the count so we can establish who this is, and we can walk through the trajectory and show. Because some people will take there are parts of the Bible which are metaphors. So when this guy is saying in general that, oh, well, it's a spirit, or this actually means that, yes, there are parts of the Bible where they are allegories, they are parables. But there are also certain things which are speaking of historic things which are literal and are meant to be taken that way. Let me pop my screen up while I'm talking. Do the share screen while we scroll down and get there. Some things are talking about a specific person in place. All right, keep going. Oh, I guess the screen just needs to catch up. And should we start at... Let's start with 25 and 21. So we can lead up to this. So anybody who wants to try to pick this apart in some kind of way and say, well, this actually means that, and that means this, like this guy is doing, calling it, oh no, the spirit of Amalek. let's go through this whole part. Like I was watching a video with young Pharaoh and a rabbi. It was being covered on Deacon's page. And it's kind of ironic because I wanted Deacon to cover this for so long. This happened a while back. And I was nervous to cover it on my page because it came out right around the same time that young Pharaoh lost his page. And I was like, yeah, I don't really want to use something that, where he lost his page over it. And at the time I realized he didn't lose his page over it. And it actually came out like a little bit before that. But his whole page got yanked down from some other stuff that he was doing. But at the time, I was in the mindset that if I used any of his stuff, I can get the possibility of strikes or getting the channel taken out. So I avoided talking about it. But in this, they're using a lot of allegories and things that are not correct on young Pharaoh's side and on the rabbi side. And the same thing with this gentleman in here. And he's using from a lot of stuff which come from rabbinic literature, where they start turning certain things into different concepts in the scripture than what they actually are. So that's the setup. That's my thinking. And I caught this like actually earlier in the day. And watching all that stuff, it made me really want to get in and talk about this because there's so many people who have talked about this topic, because this is something that's actually being taught now. So let's skip to, let's go on ahead. Genesis 25 and 21, sir.
Book of Genesis, chapter 25 and verse 21. And Isaac entreated the Lord for his wife, because she was barren. And the Lord was entreated of him, and Rebekah his wife conceived. And the children struggled together within her. And she said, If it be so, why am I thus? And she went to inquire of the Lord. And the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb.
Now stop there. Read that part again.
And the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb.
So this is letting you know, even though they are brothers, they are the progenitors of 2 different nations. Not so Jacob and Esau, the people who go into Jacob and Esau and try to say that this is a spirit of Jacob and Israel, and this is a spirit of Esau and Satan. That is not true. That is not correct. This is showing you clearly here that they're going to be 2 different nations. And up actually before this was like 25 and 17, I believe, when it's going to Ishmael and Keturah. But Abraham had multiple different sons, and that started off progenitors of different nations. That's like that old song we used to sing in Bible study, not Bible studies, Sunday school. Father Abraham had many sons, and I am one of them, and so are you. Yes, Father Abraham did have a bunch of sons. And also, that doesn't mean that everybody is a descendant of Father Abraham. So that's a misnomer. But just wanted to put that out. So let's continue. I'll try not to blab my mouth too much, but can't help it. So continue.
Genesis 25 and verse 23. And the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger.
Keep that in mind when it says the elder shall serve the younger, because in scriptures that we're going to bring up later on, it refers to Amalek in particular as one of the first of the nations. Now, is it saying Amalek is literally the first of the nations? No. And we'll get to that, but that's right. I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but it's just showing you that these are 2 different nations. Let's continue.
Verse 24. And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. And the first came out red, all over like a hairy garment, and they called his name Esau.
Continue.
And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 80 years old when she bare them.
Okay. So now let's scroll back up real quick. I want to focus on this one part. I know a lot of times, a lot of Hebrew Israelites, we like to go to Genesis 25 and 25, trying to picture and understand the possible phenotype of Esau. But I want to focus on the very first part that it says. Can you reread 25 for me, sir?
Genesis 25 and 25. And the first came out red, all over like a hairy garment.
The first. It's calling Esau the first. Keep that in mind. That's very important. Esau is the first. Continue.
And they called his name Esau. And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 80 years old when she bare them.
Okay. Now, where did I want to go? Oh, yeah. Let's skip this. Now, actually, yeah. Actually, you can just keep going down, go all the way down to 28.
Okay. And the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter, a man of the fields, and Jacob was a plain man, dwelling in tents.
Now, I want to stop you right there. People who try to say, well, no, it's the spirit of Esau. It's the spirit of Jacob. It's the spirit of Amalek. Right here is clearly telling you. It talks about them being born. It talked about them that they're going to be progenitors of two different nations, that they're going to be separated from the womb, that they fought in the womb, that Esau came out first. It literally talked about her praying about being pregnant. And then it goes, and the boys grew, and Esau was a cunning hunter. That's not a spirit is not, an ideology is not out there hunting. It's not the ideology is not a cunning hunter. Esau is literally a cunning hunter, a man of the field. And Jacob was a plain man dwelling in tents. Continue, sir.
Genesis 25 and verse 28. And Isaac loved Esau, because he did eat of his venison. But Rebekah loved Jacob.
All right.
And Jacob sawed pottage and eat. Oh, you wanted me to only go to 28?
Yeah, just 28. And
Okay.
now let's skip down to 30.
Genesis
Or I guess you know what? Since we already read 28, let's just keep on rolling straight down 25 for a while, so we can establish the progenitors that these are two nations, the two men who started off two whole nations. And let's get the understanding and context of of a couple of things, and it establishes it here in Genesis 25. So continue.
Genesis 25 and verse 29. And Jacob sawed pottage, and Esau came from the field, and he was faint. And Esau said to Jacob, Feed me, I pray thee, with that same red pottage, for I am faint. Therefore was his name called Edom.
Edom. Therefore was his name called Edom, which you break down the etymology of the word. Edom goes back to red, just like Esau goes back to red, just like Ashashua, which goes back to wasted away. All of these things are all, if you go into the Hebrew, they all start making more sense. Even if you look at the actual place of Edom or Mount Seir, it is literally red. The sea which is connected to it is literally the Red Sea. That's not a coincidence that it's named that way. It's named that way because he had dominion over that whole area also, after taking over the people who lived in that area before him. Very similar to the very story which you hear about the Israelites, kicking out the people of Canaan and taking that land. Same similar stories that are going on here. The only difference is one was told to do it by God, one did it on their own. But let's continue. Oh yeah, I also wanted to read this out because anybody who watched the young Pharaoh one when he's debating the rabbi, he starts going into Jacob being a supplanter, and some people talk about how Jacob stole the birthright from Esau. Right here, it tells you that Esau sold his birthright, sold it. So it doesn't matter about whatever. Like you guys say, well, later on when the birthright is being handed down, that he tricked him and all that. Esau already sold this, and this is one thing we have to keep in mind, regardless of any of that stuff. He sold this. Continue, sir.
And Jacob,
sorry.
You essentially spoiled it.
Sorry.
Genesis 25 and 31. And Jacob said, "Sell me this day thy birthright." And Esau said, "Behold, I am at the point to die, and what profit shall this birthright do to me?"
So you see, he sold his birthright, and he didn't even care about it. It wasn't like, man, come on, bro, I'm about to die, man. Why are you gonna do me like that? Why are you gonna put? He's like, man, I'm about to die, dude. I don't care. I do not care. This is not gonna profit me at all if I'm dying, so I don't care. Just sell it. Right there, showing you he had no faith that the Most High was going to maintain him at all.
And Jacob said, "Swear to me this day." And he swore unto me. And he sold his birthright unto Jacob.
All right. Deal brokered. Let's continue.
Verse 34. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and pottage of lentils. And he did eat and drink, and rose up and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright.
You hear that? Esau despised his birthright. So any of this stuff that you're going to hear later on, keep in mind, Esau despised his birthright. Here, going ahead. Hold on. Let me find the spot where I want to go. You know which area. Was it trying to remember what was it? Is it 27, 28? You know what I'm talking about, Fuzz?
Oh, it should be 27.
27. Yeah, there we go. So 27 and 21. So remember, Esau despised his birthright, even though they decided to title this Jacob's Deception. But let's go on ahead and get to, hold on a second. Let me hop over and make sure, see if there's any comments in chat. Nope. There's not, so cool. We can keep rolling. All right, continue, sir.
Genesis 27 and verse 1. And it came to pass that when Isaac was old, and his eyes were dim so that he could not see, he called Esau his eldest son, and said unto him, My son. And he said unto him, Behold, here am I. And he said, Behold now, I am old, and know not the day of my death. Now therefore take, I pray thee, thy weapons, thy quiver, and thy bow, and go out to the field, and take me some venison, and make me savory meats, such as I love, and bring it to me, that I may eat, that my soul may bless thee before I die.
Okay,
Right.
so this is so for time's sake, he's going to do this. You guys, if you don't know the story, please come back 327, where he's going into, all the stuff that happened with the birthright. Let's skip down to the actual. Let's skip down. Now let's skip. Because I want to get to the birthright part, because this is very important to understand. He didn't discern not. This is going into the deception.
You probably,
So-called deception. I think
you
I'm on 28.
34.
No. Oh, wait a minute. There we go. No, I skipped. All right, that's what I want. 27 and 25.
All right. Genesis 27 and verse 25. And he said, bring it near to me, and I will eat of my son's venison, that my soul may bless thee. And he brought it near to him, and he did eat. And he brought him wine, and he drank. And his father Isaac said unto him, come near now, and kiss me, my son. And he came near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his raiment, and blessed him.
Because see, what's going on here, for those who are not familiar with that part, basically he sent Esau out to go and get him venison because he's about to pass away. He wanted to have a final meal. He wanted to have corn. He wanted to have his he wanted to have wine and have a nice feast right before he passed, so he can give on the birthright to his firstborn son. Like we said again, Esau was the first. Esau sells his birthright. That makes Jacob now the rightful heir to the birthright, making him now, even though he's technically the second son, he becomes, the heir apparent. Because back in those days, the birthright always went to the first son. Keep in mind, Esau is the first. Like that one pastor was saying before. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. It's another verse that we'll get into later on. But because some of these pastors, they'll go into a couple of different verses as far as Amalek. And I know some people who might not understand this are like, okay, they talked about Amalek. Why are you going to Esau? We're going to explain. Just follow with us. Just follow with us a little bit. And so at this point, he's trying to discern, wait a minute. I sent Esau out. Man, he got here really quick. And his voice is kind of soft. It kind of sounds like Jacob. Don't really sound like Esau. His voice sounds timid. But he smells like him and he feels like him. Oh,
give me a second. I'll be right back.
Okay, yeah, I'll take it. But it smells a lot like him, So yeah, I'll read it again. 27:27. And he came near and kissed him, and he smelled the smell of his raiment, and blessed him. And he said, see, the smell of my son is as the smell of a field which the Lord hath blessed. Because remember, his father, Isaac, had more of a favoritism towards Esau. The mother, Rebecca had more of a favoritism towards Jacob. And so that's the reason why he's talking about, he's that smell of the field. Remember the cunning hunter out in the field? That's what we're talking about there. 27:28. Therefore, God give thee the dew of heaven. This is a blessing now. And the fatness of the earth and the plenty of corn and wine. This is basically saying that you're going to have wealth. You're going to have a plenty of crops. You're going to have wines. You're going to have all of the finer things in life. All of this is going to be granted to you.
All right, I can take over.
Okay, go ahead.
Genesis 27 and verse 29. Let people serve thee, and nations bow down to thee. Be Lord over thy brethren, and let thy mother's sons bow down to thee. Cursed be everyone that curseth thee, and blessed be he that blesseth thee.
Right there's another sign that is telling you, let people serve thee, and nations bow to thee. Be Lord over thy brethren. Thy brethren, which you just heard, was Esau. That is the brethren. Continue, sir.
Verse 30. And it came to pass, as soon as Isaac had made an end of blessing Jacob, and Jacob was yet scarce gone out from the presence of Isaac his father, that Esau his brother came in from his hunting. And he also had made savory meats, and brought it unto his father, and said to his father, Let my father arise, and eat of his son's venison, that thy soul may bless him. And Isaac his father said unto him, Who art thou? And he said, I am thy son, thy firstborn Esau. And Isaac trembled very exceedingly and said, Who? Where is he that hath taken venison and brought it me, and I have eaten of all before thou camest and have blessed him? Yea, and he shall be blessed. And when Isaac heard the words of his father, he cried with a great and exceeding bitter cry, and said unto his father, Bless me, even me also, O my father.
Now remember, Esau despised his birthright, sold it, didn't care about it. Now, when it comes to actually receiving it, now he wants it. And he's not letting his father know, I already sold it. But in his mind, even though he already sold it, he still felt like it should be his. So continue.
And he said, Thy brother came with subtlety, and hath taken away thy blessing. And he said, Is not he rightly named Jacob? For he hath supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthrights, and behold, now he hath taken away my blessing. And he said, Hast thou not reserved the blessing for me?
This is the part which I want everybody to pay a lot of attention to this part coming up. Because when I first read this years ago, I'm talking about easily maybe 20 years ago or more, it sounds like the blessing is the same, but continue so we can hear this.
And Isaac answered and said unto Esau, Behold, I have made him thy lord, and all his brethren have I given to him for servants. And with corn and wine have I sustained him. And what shall I do now unto thee, my son? And Esau said unto his father, Hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept.
Now I want people to think, because they're hearing him, he's boo-hooing, he's crying, he's upset, he's angry. This isn't like a 17-year-old kid. This is a 40-year-old man who is dishonest, who won't tell the truth on what was really going on, and who is acting like a petulant child, even though he sold his birthright away. Continue.
Let me see. What was that? Oh, Genesis 27 and verse 39.
Mm-hmm.
And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above.
And I want to stop you there because actually, let's go on and continue. I'll continue and I'll add my thoughts.
Verse 40. And by thy sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck.
All right. So what I wanted to point out here is, says Isaac is getting his dwelling should be the fatness of the earth also, and the dew of heaven from above. So it sounds like he's giving him the same thing, but one thing he tells him, he says, and by thy sword thou shalt live. He didn't say that about Jacob. He said Esau is going to have to live by his sword. That is going to be how Esau is going to gain power in everything. One of the signs you definitely need to look into is talked about Esau being a hunter, and it also talks about him living by the sword. So one of Esau's weapon is going to be, one of his abilities and talents is going to be warfare. That's another telltale sign of who Esau is. This isn't a spirit. This is talking about a war-like. This is the progenitor of what becomes a war-like nation or tribe. And thou shalt and shalt serve thy brother, and it shall come to pass. Because when he's saying you shall serve your brother, you might not be serving him right now, but at some point you're going to have to serve your brother. And it shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. And that's saying once you get power, then you will subdue your brother. So that means for a season, Esau is going to have the power over Jacob. All right, so goodness, that's loud.
We can actually have a lesson in the lesson, and with that alone, we can connect Esau to Cain.
Yeah, but that'll take us to a whole another direction.
I know. Just saying.
But
we could.
But what I want to jump to now, let's jump to Genesis. Let's jump to
36.
Yeah, hold on. Let me get there. Actually, just next chapter. If it'll go fast enough. 33, 34, 30. There we go. And Genesis. Let's start at Genesis 36 and 1. Now we're starting to get somewhere because I want to establish all of this so we can establish who we're talking about.
For the sake of time, I think we should go to 8.
You want to skip to 8? Okay, yeah, that's cool. That's fine. But well, I just want everybody to notice. I'll go ahead and read a little bit of it real quick. Now, these are the generations of Esau, who is Edom. Generations, genos. This is talking about this is, a whole tribe of people. This isn't some just spirit. This is an actual nation. This is a genealogy. These are people. And this is going through the women he married and them having kids and stuff like that, which I do recommend you guys to come back and read often. But this is going to hop to the point. All right. Let's see. Actually, where did I want to go? There we go. So this right here is going into more of their land, all that. Let's just skip to 36 and 12.
This is Genesis 36 and verse 12. And Timnah was concubine to Eliphaz, Esau's son, and she bare to Eliphaz Amalek. These were the sons of Edom, Esau's wife.
Now, this is this is bringing it full circle to who we're talking about. When they're talking about the spirit of Amalek, this is bringing you the genealogy of Amalek. We talked about Esau. We talked about how his traits are going to go throughout his generation. So later on, when in Second Esdras 6 and 9, which we'll go to it eventually, it's talking about Esau. That point, Esau, the man himself, has been long dead, but oftentimes in the Bible, it will use the progenitor of that nation or tribe to describe out that whole nation as a whole. So it might be saying this one name, but it's talking about the whole entire tribe. So when it's talking about Esau, it's talking about the whole tribe of Edomites. When it's talking about Israel, or Jacob, it's talking about the whole tribe of the Israelites. And so right here, we're seeing that Amalek is literally the grandson of Esau, right? So let's hop to, I want you to head to Exodus, Exodus 17.
Okay.
Let's see. Yeah, which verse do I want to start with? Start with
8.
Actually start a verse before. Let's start with let's start with 7. That way they can get what was kind of going on before anything happened.
Book of Exodus, chapter 17 and verse 7. And he called the name of the place Massah and Meribah, because of the chiding of the children of Israel. And because
Now, right here, the Israelites are sitting here complaining. For lack of better words, they're bitching and moaning. They're not pleased and happy right now.
Hi, Atlas.
Oh, Atlas is in the building. Hey, what's up, brother? How we doing? Continue.
Verse 7. And he called the name of the place Massah and Meribah, because of the chiding of the children of Israel, and because they tempted the Lord, saying, Is the Lord among us or not? Verse 8. Then came Amalek and fought with Israel and Rephidim.
And this is the reason why I wanted to read 17 and 7, because a lot of these people who preach that Amalek is just a spirit, they go to this verse here to show because the Israelites were lacking in faith in the moment. This is why the spirit of Amalek came to come after them while they were weak. No, this is literally, now that could be a possibility that has something to do with it. But this is not some spiritual torment that they're going through. This is a physical, actual torment. This is an assault that they're up under. So let's continue.
Verse 9. And Moses said unto Joshua, Choose out men and go out, fight with Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the top of the hill with the rod of God in mine hand. So Joshua did as Moses had said to him, and fought with Amalek. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. And it came to pass, when Moses held up his hand, that Israel prevailed. And when he let down his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hands were heavy, and they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat thereon. And Aaron and Hur stayed up his hands, the one on the one side and the other on the other side. And his hands were steady until the going down of the sun. And Joshua discomfited Amalek and his people with the edge of the sword. And the Lord said unto Moses, Write this for a memorial in a book, and rehearse it in the ears of Joshua. For I will utterly put out the remembrance of Amalek from under heaven.
So this is showing you that Amalek still had a hatred towards Israel, going all the way back to their grandfather being ticked off about not getting the birthright. Even though Amalek was doing well as a nation, they were wealthy and all that, they were still mad about that birthright. And it passed through generations. This is also why there will be war with Amalek from generation to generation, because Amalek is going to continue to have war with the children of Israel because they're ticked off about that birthright. Let's see, where else do I want to go? Keep going.
So,
Yeah, go down, go all the way down to
16.
Go down to 16.
Exodus 17 and verse 15. And Moses built an altar and called the name of it Yahweh Nisi. For he said, Because the Lord hath sworn that the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation.
Now, when it's talking about Amalek, it is not only talking about Amalek, it is talking about that whole nation of Edom. You want to know how we know that that's talking about that whole nation of Edom?
I want to do it. I think I know where you're going.
Do you know where I'm going?
1 Samuel.
Yep, hold on a second.
You want 15 and 2.
Yes, that is where I'm going. Oh, hold on. Let me type it in. Sorry, slow typer here. Glad you guys bear with me and tolerate me. Oh, come on. Go, go, go. Now it's the computer's fault. Come on. All right, yeah, don't worry about it. You can go on ahead. Yeah, just go on ahead and read it. I don't have to get on the screen for everything.
That actually happened in class earlier today. And I think it's the site itself that's bugging me out, not necessarily on your.
Yeah, that could be what it is, but.
All right. This is 1 Samuel chapter 15 and verse 2. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, I remember Amalek. I remember that which Amalek did to Israel, how he laid wait for him in the way when he came up from Egypt. Now, just for context, the years between when Exodus was written and when First Samuel was written, it's like about 500 to 800 years, give or take. Right?
Yeah,
Marcus?
yeah, and also, from the time period of the birthright to this time period of the children of Israel, we're talking about hundreds of years that went by, and they are still upset about this. They are still pissed after hundreds of years.
Verse 3. Now go and smite Amalek, and utterly destroy all that they have, and spare them not, but slay both man and woman, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass. And Saul gathered the people together and numbered them in Telaim, 200,000 footmen and 10,000 men of Judea. And Saul came to a city of Amalek, and laid wait in the valley. And Saul said unto the Kenites, Go, depart, get ye down from among the Amalekites, lest I destroy you with them. For ye showed kindness to all the children of Israel when they came up out of Egypt. So the Kenites departed from among the Amalekites. And Saul smote the Amalekites from Havilah until thou comest to Shur, that is, over against Egypt.
Okay, and, so no, sorry.
One more. Verse 8. And he took Agag, the king of the Amalekites, alive, and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword.
Continue.
But Saul and the people spared Agag, and the best of the sheep, and of the oxen, and of the fatlings, and the lambs, and all that was good, but would not utterly destroy them. But everything that was vile and refused, that they destroyed utterly.
No, keep going, because it's going to get to the Agagite.
Okay. Really? Oh, until when? Okay.
Hold on a second. Yeah. Because let's see. Did you read 1520?
Oh, actually, we could just skip all the way to there. All right. 1 Samuel 15 and verse 20. And Saul said unto Samuel, Yea, I have obeyed the voice of the Lord, and have gone the way which the Lord sent me, and have brought Agag, the king of Amalek, and have utterly destroyed the Amalekites.
I guess I can drop this down since it's frozen, and I can't go anywhere with it. But yeah, continue, sir. Or start back at the top. Sorry for interrupting.
From verse 20.
Yeah, of verse 20.
All right. 1 Samuel 15 and verse 20. And Saul said unto Samuel, Yea, I have obeyed the voice of the Lord, and have gone the way which the Lord sent me. And have brought Agag, the king of Amalek, and have utterly destroyed the Amalekites.
There we go. Now it finally wants to pop up after you finish reading. Okay, so people will go here and will say, see right there, he destroyed Amalek, right? And he already wiped out the whole village, right? So there's no more Amalek. Well, how can he have war with Amalek from generation to generation if there's no more Amalek? Because apparently, just because he killed all of these people here, that doesn't mean that was all of the Amalekites. It means that was all the Amalekites that was living in those areas. So, what I would like for sorry, you want to say something?
Yeah. Did you want to continue on through the actual generations? Like Esther and additions to Esther and first.
I'm definitely want to. Yes.
I have them all lined up.
Yeah. Oh, you already got them lined up. Esther 3 and 1, and Maccabees 1 and 1.
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Let me see if it will play nice with me, and I can bring it up.
You want to head to? Well, I was thinking Esther 3 and 10. That's
let's start at 1 so that we can go through the whole plot here. Because I want to show, because something right here you need to see right here in Esther 1. So going ahead and read that verse and then hold for me.
Okay. This is the book of Esther, chapter 1 and 1. And it came to pass in the day of Ahasuerus, which reigned from India even unto Ethiopia, over 107 and 20 provinces.
Oh no! Did you start at Esther? No, I wanted you 3 and 1.
Oh, 3. You wanted 3 and 1? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Book of Esther, chapter 3 and verse 1. And after these things did Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha. Hammedatha.
Yeah.
Let me start from the top. After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagites.
Now hold there, and then hold your spot, and then just you can just keep reading in a second. I want to remind, when we were in 1 Samuel, was at 15 and 20, and it said, and Saul said unto Samuel, Yea, I have obeyed the voice of the Lord, and have gone the way which the Lord has sent me, and have brought Agag, the king of Amalek, and have utterly destroyed the Amalekites. Agagite. This is tying that 1 Samuel's 15 and 20 to this Esther 3 and 1. So continue where you left off.
And now this is several more hundreds of years with the Persian captivity, right?
Yes. This is nearing the end of the Persian captivity. Or maybe, well, nearing the end of the Persian captivity, but still going while Persia is still strong and about to start fighting the eventually down the road they'll be fighting the Greeks, and that's what we're going to roll into. But keep going.
After these, Esther 3 and 1. After these things did King Ahasuerus promote Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagites, and advanced him, and set his seat above all the princes that were with him.
Now, no, we can skip down to is it 10? Yes,
Yeah.
and read Esther 3 and 10.
Book of Esther, chapter 3 and verse 10. And the king took his ring from his hand, and gave it unto Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagites, the Jews' enemy.
Agagite is just another way of saying an Amalekite, basically a descendant of Amalek. Now,
Actually, you can actually prove it with. Let me look over there.
that's right. I won't be able to pull this up on Blue Letter Bible. I don't think it has Apocrypha.
Let me see.
Let me just see if I could just pull it up by itself. Let's see. If I could just pull it up on its own. Oh, wow. That pulls up very differently than I'm used to. So let me put this on the screen now. Share screen. So let's go on ahead and read. I don't know if you guys can see that good. Let me try to zoom in a little more.
Oh, I thought you were gonna go to additions to Esther.
No, I wasn't gonna go. But if you wanted to, what did you want to bring up?
All right. This is additions to Esther, chapter 16 and verse 10. For Aman, a Macedonian, the son of Amadatha, being indeed a stranger from the Persian blood, and far distant from our goodness, and as a stranger received of us.
Okay, yeah. I probably was gonna either way. I guess it still fits either that one, but this is a little bit longer, so it's probably better to do that first. So let's hop back into it. And first Maccabees 1:1. Because yeah, that's right. Yeah, you did. I did need you to read that one. That way, read it one more time and slow it. Actually, I'm going ahead and explain it out so they can get the relevance of how Haman actually connects here to the Macedonians and how Philip, the Macedonian, connects. So go ahead, sir.
So just for a little bit of understanding, you're going to see from the Hebrew to the Greek a transition of names. Just for example, Haman becomes Amon in the Apocrypha. Jeremiah becomes Jeremy, and Isaiah becomes Esaias. And yeah, those are just a couple examples of name changing when you get a transition from the Hebrew to the Greek. So when we're talking about Haman, in addition to Esther, we're using the Greek dominant apocrypha to referring to that we'll call Haman Amon. So, all right.
Oh, well, hold on 1 second. I want to say hello out there to Vicky. Vicky says, hello, Marcus and Jose. Been listening for a while as I am cooking, always very enlightening. Good. Yes, we want to be able to explain this stuff all the way out and keep it as simple as possible. And of course, if you guys have any questions at all, please do not hesitate to ask us anything. As long as it's pertaining to this lesson, if it's pertaining to something else, Bible related, we can always pick it up after the lesson. But continue, sir.
Okay. Additions to Esther, chapter 16 and verse 10. For Aman, a Macedonian, the son of Amadatha, being indeed a stranger from Persian blood, and far distant from our goodness, we can actually end it there because it's just going to continue
Mhm.
to another verse. But yeah, main point being, like, this is establishing a link for that makes Aman a Macedonian and the son of Amadatha being yeah, from Amadatha being an Agagites, which
So
connects all the way back to Esau.
yes, Agagay is another sect within the family of the Amalekites. Amalekites are another sect within the family of the Edomites, which the progenitor of the Edomites is Esau. So this is not a spirit. These are talking about generations of people and recording a history. So let's continue. Let me put it up on the screen. Uh, First Maccabees 1:1. And this is going into history. This is something you guys can all look up in secular history. This is how many of you guys love the movie like 300? This is talking about literally the battles that were going on. Now, I would argue that the phenotypes of some of the people look very differently than they portrayed them in the movie. But that's not the issue right now. Let's just go on into this account that you see literally in the Bible. And this was predicted literally before Alexander the Great was even born, hundreds of years before he was born. And this is the reason why when the Greeks came rolling into Jerusalem, they just opened the gates. They're like, well, we already know you're coming to conquer us, so we're not even going to worry about it. Actually, I'll read that. I guess read the header too about Antiochus gave leave.
What do you mean? The header?
Yeah, read the header real quick so it can give them even what it says in the Bible breakdown of what's kind of the context they're trying to give you.
Okay. Antiochus gave leave to let up the fashions of the Gentiles in Jerusalem. And okay, I actually need to break out my actual 16:11:1 to.
Or I can go ahead and read it. And spoiled it and the temple in it, and set up therein the abomination of desolation, and slew those that did circumcise their children. And so this right here, the reason why I wanted to read this part here is because when it starts talking about the Israelites who are in the Greek provinces, and they're going and they're talking to, there's no Greek, no Jew. This is going into what I'm trying to remember what's to call. You know what I'm talking about, right, Jose? Where a lot of them forgot who they were.
Hellenization.
Hellenization. Thank you. This goes into the start of Hellenization. It says Antiochus, which is Greek, gave leave to set up the fashions of the Gentiles in Jerusalem and spoiled it. This isn't like, hey, I'm gonna give you some toys. This is not that kind of spoiling. This is spoiling like your food is being spoiled, ruining in it, and the temple in it, and set up their abominations and desolation. They put in all of their Greek gods in the temple, blaspheming, the faith of the Israelites. Basically, just the utmost levels of disrespect that you can do. And slew those that did circumcise their children, because they put out an edict that you were no longer allowed to keep Hebrew customs. No more circumcisions. Many of them no more keeping their beard, forcing them to break their kosher laws. There's accounts where they're literally, some of the Israelites back then literally were put to death because they would not eat pork. So, it says, we know the Maccabees from the movies and secular literature. Okay. Yep, but a lot of churches do not read into these books, even though most historians And even a lot of Bible theologians will tell you that they call this deuterocanonical. That doesn't mean it's fake. That means that they do not take it as primary canon, and they do believe a lot of the accounts of it are backed up by historical records. So let's go into it. Verse 1, sir.
This is the first book of the Maccabees in the Apocrypha, chapter 1 and verse 1. And it happened, after that Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Shittim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead, the first over Greece.
So this is when Greece first got the name of Greece. This is when it's first being called Greece. And he became the first leader of it. Continue.
And made many wars, and won many strongholds, and slew the kings of the earth, and went through to the ends of the earth, and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him. Whereupon he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up. And he gathered a mighty strong host, and ruled over countries and nations and kings, who became tributaries unto him. And after these things he fell sick, and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable, and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive. So Alexander reigned 12 years, and then died, and his servants bare rule every one in his place. And after his death they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been a hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men, who persuaded many, saying, Let us go, and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward herein, that they went to the king, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem, according to the customs of the heathen.
Now, this place of exercise they're talking about in Jerusalem, what they wanted was a gymnasium like the Greeks had. You guys heard of Greco-Roman wrestling? Well, this is what this is talking about. Back then in that time, you could look up in historical sources. In these gymnasiums, this is where the term pederast came from. In these gymnasiums, the men would go in and would be naked and would molest young boys and wrestle around with other men naked. This is where a lot of these practices came from. This is what it's talking about, that the men of Israel wanted to start doing the same customs as the heathens. They wanted to start eating the same foods that they were eating. They wanted to start worshiping Zeus and Hercules and all of these different gods that they had in their pantheon, and Apollo and all of these things, Zeus and stuff. Later on, why you see the transliteration of Yahushai's name later into the name Jesus, Jesus, coming from Zeus. So this is where a lot of this mixture and twisting came. Sorry to interrupt, sir. Continue.
Verse 15. And made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenants, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief. Now when the kingdom was established, before Antiochus, he thought to reign over Egypt, that he might have dominion of 2 realms, Wherefore he entered into Egypt with a great multitude, with chariots, and elephants, and horsemen, and a great navy, and made war against Ptolemy, king of Egypt. But Ptolemy was afraid of him and fled, and many were wounded to death. Thus they got the strong cities in the land of Egypt, and he took the spoils thereof. And after that Antiochus had smitten Egypt, he returned again in the 140th and third year, and went up against Israel and Jerusalem with a great multitude, and entered proudly into the sanctuary, and took away the golden altar, and the candlesticks of light, and all the vessels thereof, and the table of the shewbread, and the pouring vessels, and the vials, and the censers of gold, and the veil, the crowns, and the golden ornaments that were before the temple, all which he pulled off. He took also the silver and the gold and the precious vessels, and he took the hidden treasures which he found. And when he had taken all away, he went into his own land, having made a great massacre, and spoken very proudly. Therefore there was great mourning in Israel, in every place where they were.
All right, yeah, we can stop it there. This is going into when they talk about all the evils that were put into all the evils that magnified when they were talking about all the wickedness that's going on. And so when you have the Israelites sitting here in this land, generation after generation after generation after generation, after most of their customs were beaten out of them, were taken away from them, their language was basically stripped away for many of them. Now, did some of them keep their customs? Yes. Is some of them able to hold back and remember who they were before they start to mingle in with the Greeks? Most definitely. But a large majority of them had been separated from what's called Jewry. Thus, why you start to have people later on who start talking about, thus in the New Testament, why you have people like Paul, who is sent to all of these different places throughout Greek and Roman provinces to remind the Israelites that they are not Gentiles, they are of Israel. See, Vicky asks, did Maccabees adopt Greek culture into Judaism? No, they actually did not. The Maccabees actually fought back against them, and they kept a great battle. And then what happened is you have what goes from what they call the Hasmonean Dynasty into the Herodian Dynasty. Did you want to get that account, sir? Are there books? Isabel Rafa says, are there books that got kicked out of the Bible? These 14. Well, this is the first of 14 books that got kicked out under Martin Luther, definitely. And theologians will tell you that these are canonical books. They'll call them deuterocanonical, secondary canon. But they will not tell you that these things are false, because without these books, in fact, without the book of Maccabees, you won't learn what Hanukkah even is. Maccabees actually means hammer. That's what it actually means, because that's what he's known for by his pushback of his pushback against the Greeks and all of these customs that Israelites started taking up. Now, when we're talking Israelites, we're talking about the southern kingdom. We're talking about just Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, because at this time, the northern kingdom had already been taken away into captivity to the Assyrians. And so they were no longer in the land. The southern kingdom and most of the world had no clue where they went. And without this deuterocanonical books, like the book of Esdras, you don't find out anything of what happens to the northern kingdom. Now, were they some stragglers here and there from the northern kingdom, which would have been back in Israel? You might have had a Reuben, a Joseph, Naphtali. You might have had all of the different tribes, a handful here and there, but not enough to account for like a full whole tribe. So many of them would have gotten absorbed into Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. Oh, sorry. Do you have it first?
What account did you want me to get?
I want you to pull when let's see. Goodness, there's so much that I could go into there. Trying to figure out what should I go to quickly. Just when the Maccabees start to fight back against the Greeks. What was the other question? Vicky says, so interesting because a lot of biblical scholars claim the Maccabees adopted Greek culture. That is not correct. They were the ones who were fighting against that. What ended up happening, I'm going to kind of do one of those long stories short because there's so much that we can go into because you have, you know, the father of the Maccabees who started the war, the rebellion. When he went down, his oldest son stepped up and he continued to fight back against the Greeks. And it inspired many of the Israelites to walk away from those those Greek customs and to start to come back to following the law, statutes, and commandments. Then from there, once he was killed, it went on to the next brother. And they were worried that, oh crap, what are we gonna do without, you know, without our most valiant warriors? And eventually what happened is they kept killing off the brothers, and it got down to the last brother who was not like a military, like a top general, but he was a good strategist. He was actually killed in betrayal by people that he thought were his, which he thought were his friends, which turned out to be, like we talked about, how Amalek would have war. You know, how they will continue to have that hatred towards the Israelites. Descendants of Amalek were there and eventually set him up to murder the last son, and then started marrying different people from the tribe of Edom. The men started marrying the women of the Hasmonean dynasty, and that's when you start to have the Hasmonean Herodian Dynasty. So say, was it the Hebrews and then the Greeks and then the Romans? Who was first? Well, they all lived separately at one point. The Hebrews were definitely around before the Greeks and the Romans. But what happened is, as the Persian Empire fell, the Greek Empire was rising. As the Greek Empire, after Alexander died, it split into 4 different empires. You know, you have the Ptolemaic dynasty, you have the Seleucid. I can't remember them all right now off the top of my head. A little fuzzy since it's been a while since I've researched it all, but you had those 4 different provinces. And what would happen is they all wanted to be like Alexander. They all wanted to be the sole king. So what happened is those 4 different dynasties started fighting with each other. As they started fighting with each other and weakening each other and killing each other off, the Romans start rising up and eventually start making pacts with some of the Greek provinces to overthrow the other Greek provinces. And then once they did that, you had that little Greco-Roman empire you had for a little while. The Romans eventually took out the Greeks, not completely obliterated them, but to a point where they subjugated them down, where they encapsulated the Greek empires into the Roman Empire and let them be almost like a vassal state. And then eventually, when you started to have some of these warring and things going with the Israelites, they allowed the Romans to come in and be kind of like middlemen. Eventually, what happened is they went from being middlemen to taking over and making Israel a vassal state. And so that was basically like they passed the power over to Rome from the Greeks who had subjugated them before. That's the reason why when you start off the New Testament, all of a sudden the Israelites are in captivity to the Romans. And people are like, well, how did that happen? They were just like in their own land. If this is confusing, well, because these 14 books leave all this information out. Sorry, Fuss.
So I'm guessing you want to start when Judas Maccabees had won the first fight to begin rededicating the temple.
Yes, that's exactly what I want to start.
All right, I guess.
Let me see.
I'll
put it up.
I guess I can start at chapter 4, First Maccabees chapter 4 and verse 28. Because that's leading up to the battle, and then
yeah, start at 28.
All right. Book of First Maccabees chapter 4 and verse 28. The next year, therefore, following, Lysias gathered together 70,000 choice men of foot and 5,000 horsemen, that he might subdue them. So they came into Idumea and pitched their tents at Bethsura.
Now let's stop there. They came into where?
Idumea.
Now, can you explain to the people what is Idumea? Why would I tell you to stop there?
Idumea is the Greek word for Edom.
So this is something which they were doing in the Bible, where this is why the first century Israelites were very upset about when they had to translate the ancient text into the Greek, because when they were translating this, I only want to say first century. I believe this was still during the BC time. Yes, this is still BC when this is happening. But when they were doing this translations, they were doing this under duress. And so little things like this. So they came into Idumea. Idumea is another word for Edom, which if you're looking at a map, if you were looking at a map of Israel, Israel's going to sit right there. Judea, let me go a little higher. Israel right here, Judea right there. Edom and the lands and the rest of the lands of Canaan or Philistia is sitting right there up under them. So this is what it's talking about when it's talking about going into Idumea, because even though people like to forget, the land of Mount Seir, Edom, is literally sitting right there. It's not very far from them. So Vicky says, I recently read that even two Maccabees condemned association with Hellenism and Judaism that indeed were influenced. It's odd how some want to downplay that pushback. Yeah, a lot of people downplay that pushback, because if you downplay the pushback, then you can kind of get rid of the whole idea that those Gentiles that they're talking to in the New Testament aren't Israelites. That's the sole purpose of it. So that's what the Christian church does, to shoehorn themselves in as the Gentiles that he's going to go talk to.
Aren't the little caps that these people wear like traces of Hellenization?
Yes, it is just traces of Hellenization, because it talks about how they used to wear hats and things like that, and that's what eventually went to the Roman Catholic Church, and that's the reason why you see the popes always wear the little hats that you also see a certain other group of people wearing the little black hats. As Chris likes to call it, the little black hats. But yeah, let me hop back over there so I can keep scrolling down with everybody if you want to follow along. Okay, continue, sir.
First Maccabees chapter 4 and verse 29. So they came into Idumea and pitched their tents at Bethsura, and Judas met with them 10,000 men. And when he saw that mighty army, he prayed and said, Blessed art thou, O Savior of Israel, who didst quail the violence of the mighty man by the hand of thy servant David, and gavest the host of strangers into the hands of Jonathan, the son of Saul, and his armor bearer. Shut up this army in the hand of thy people Israel, and let them be confounded in their power and horsemen. Make them to be of no courage, and cause the boldness of their strength to fall away, and let them quake at their destruction.
Now, I want to stop this. I want to stop you real quick, because a lot of the Christian church, they like to think everything is all about spiritual. Notice here, this Israelite man is literally praying for his enemies to not have courage, for them to fall on their swords, basically, for them to be confounded, for them to quake in fear, and for them to be destroyed. And this is what he's praying for his enemies to literally be destroyed. Not know, oh, you slap and turn the other cheek. Because Christians don't understand that when it's talking about, turn the other cheek, it's talking about to your brother. It is talking about Israelite to Israelite. It is not talking about Israelite to every other nation. I look at it like this. How could a nation stand in a world at all if they just allow everybody to just slap them and kick them and run over them? You would no longer be a nation if you allow other outside nations to come and just trample over you, because that's not what this is. That's not what turn the other cheek is even talking about. It's talking about within their own people to try to show mercy and to try to have patience and compassion. It is not for enemy nations. Just like it shows here, this man is praying for the destruction, physical death and destruction of enemies. Sorry, continue, sir.
Verse 33. Cast them down with the sword of them that love thee. Let all those that know thy name praise thee with thanksgiving. So they joined battle, and there were slain of the host of Lysias about 5,000 men. Even before them were they slain. Now when Lysias saw his army put to flight, and the manliness of Judas's soldiers, and how they were ready either to live or die valiantly, he went into Antiochia, and gathered together a company of strangers, and having made his army greater than it was, he proposed to come again unto Judea. Then said Judas and his brethren, Behold, our enemies are discomfited. Let us go up to cleanse and dedicate the sanctuary. So
at this time, he had pushed them out of the sanctuary. And so he was trying to go and rededicate this to the Heavenly Father in thanks and gratification for this victory that they had, so that they could go back and be able to worship in peace without these heathens controlling over them, without desecrating their holy sanctuaries. Continue, sir.
We can actually, because there's a lot.
Yeah. Maybe this. Well, I want you to at least read down to 30. Read to 40.
Okay. Upon this, all the hosts assembled themselves together and went up into Mount Zion. And when they saw the sanctuary desolate, and the altar profaned, and the gates burnt. Sorry, let me start from the top. And when they saw the sanctuary desolate, and the altar profaned, and the gates burnt up, and shrubs growing in the courts, as in a forest or in one of the mountains, yea, and the priest's chambers pulled down, they rent their clothes and made great lamentation, and cast ashes upon their heads, and fell down flat to the ground upon their faces, and blew an alarm with the trumpets, and cried towards heaven.
And so at this point, they're looking at how badly all their stuff had been desecrated, because they hadn't been able to be in there. They hadn't been able to be in there. I mean, I recommend everybody definitely go through and read the Maccabees. It's so powerful. Yes, yeah. Vicky said had no idea on the hats. Yes, this goes all the way back for a long time. This isn't a new tradition. That's the reason why it's odd to me that certain people would say, "No, no, no, I'm with the Bible," but you're carrying traditions that are not in the Bible. And the Bible in the Bible literally tells you don't follow the traditions of man. You're literally following the traditions of man. You're literally following the traditions of the people who conquered you. That literally makes no sense. Mercy and grace within the family, yes. And so, what you have that happens is you have the Herodian Dynasty, which comes in. If you guys are familiar with that name, Herod, King Herod. Let me pull this up because some people think that, oh, you Hebrew Israelites, everything's about Esau, everything's about Edom. Well, remember the nation that we talked about, Edom? Herod the Great, king of Judea. Let me put this on the screen for everybody. Herod the Great, king of Judea. Says right there, Herod I, also known as Herod the Great, was a Roman Jewish client king of Judea. Was referred to as the Herodian kingdom. Born 72 BC, Edom. Father, Antipater the Idumean. Just letting you know, Idumea, Edom, this is the same place that we're talking about. And so for people who, let's skip to another verse. But I just wanted to put that up so you guys can see who Herod the Great was. He's the one who actually built the second temple. The first temple that this one was talking about, which they were, renting their clothes. And that was a tradition, when it talks about them renting their clothes and putting the ash on their forehead. That was a tradition that our ancient forefathers would do as a sign of mourning. Rip your clothes and then put the ash on your head. And then we have a period of mourning of 40 days. So you would mourn. And after you got the mourning out of the way, then they would go back to rebuild the temple. But the Herodian Dynasty, not Herodian, Hasmonean Dynasty, they were taken out through treachery by this man right here and his family. This is how they took over. And what they did was they literally married the women of the Hasmonean Dynasty. So the women of the Maccabees, this is who they married, so that they would have some level of credibility ruling over the Jews when they weren't Jews themselves. And so they went through all the schools. They had the understanding of the scriptures to a good degree because they grew up going through Hebrew school. Well, and it wouldn't have been called Hebrew school, but growing up through the synagogues. And so that's where they got their understanding. These would have probably been, I would say, maybe the second converts, because the first original converts would go back to John Hyrcanus. If you're not familiar with John Hyrcanus, let me see if I can pull him up for you. This would be the first. Was John Hyrcanus II. Oh, that's really small. But I'll read this part off for you. It says John Hyrcanus II, a member of the Hasmonean Dynasty, was for a long time the Jewish high priest, or the Israelite high priest, in the 1st century BCE. He was also briefly king of Judea, 67 to 66 BCE, and the Eternach, or the ruler of Judea, probably over the period of 47 to 40 BC. And then eventually his line was X'd out. So that became the end of the Hasmonean dynasty. And eventually it went on to the Herodian dynasty, like we were talking about. Oh, yeah, let me drop that. Well, you can have your own beliefs, sir. We have our beliefs. Say the Bible can only take us so far. Well, Christianity, that's the belief of Christianity. We don't follow Christianity. Just like by following the Bible, I've been able to be ahead of most of the people and seeing what the heck is going on. But for those who don't see the value in the Bible, they don't get what's going on and what's coming. If you don't get what's coming on or what's going on or what's coming, then you're going to be left always reacting. And if you're always reacting, more than likely you're definitely going to be losing. So I'll leave it at that. It's always better to be proactive. What did I want? One other thing. Let's pull up because we've already established that there was more of Edom continued to live. So when it's talking about war with Amalek, it's talking about war with Esau in general. Malachi. What is that verse in Malachi? You know what I'm talking about? Esau have I loved. I mean, Jacob have I loved. I can find it. Hold on a second. Drawing a blank. I know it's Malachi something. I want to show. Let's show the
1 and 2 to 3.
You said oh.
Malachi 1, 2 to 3.
All right. So let me pull that up, put it on the screen. Malachi 1 and 2. I have loved you, saith the Lord. Yet you say, wherein hast thou loved us? Was not Esau Jacob's brother, saith the Lord? Yet I loved Jacob. Malachi 1 and 3. And I hated Esau, and I laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness. So remember we were talking about, he said he's going to have war with Amalek from generation to generation. Here he's telling you that he loved Jacob and he hated Esau. This is going all the way back to tying what we said, from the very beginning when it was talking about Jacob getting the birthright and Esau giving away his birthright. If the Most High gave you something, Yahweh gave you something directly, and you have disdain for it, and you throw away his greatest gift, you don't think he's going to have some hatred for you? So that's part of it. So it's literally saying it here, and I'll keep going a little bit in Malachi. Whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, thou shalt build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against, key word there, the people against whom the Lord hath indignation forever.
You should probably go up to verse 3 and elaborate, emphasize that. 1 and 3 is talking about a future prophecy. Because where Esau dwells in Mount Seir, in the modern day, it's in Jordan. Jordan is still a place that is inhabited by people.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is, from the words of Yahushai, all things must come to pass before heaven and earth pass. And this is one thing that has yet to come to pass.
Uh-huh. Vicky has a great question here. I want to show it. Put it up on the screen real quick. Vicky says, off topic, so whenever you could respond, saw a video of Sakari where a black man was asking, how could you prove being a descendant of Israelites? I was wondering about this. Could you elaborate? There are two ways that we mainly establish prophecy, establish Israelites. For one, there are prophecies, which it will name that these prophecies will be on, what is it, Deuteronomy, I always forget which one it is. What is it? Deuteronomy 28:38?
Let me get to it. 28. And
you know which one I'm talking about, though,
yeah,
right?
yeah. It's actually
right.
46.
46. That's what I mean, 46.
This is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, and verse 46.
Mm-hmm.
And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder, and upon thy seed forever.
That's one of the signs. It says that these curses, and this is just some of the curses that the Israelites will go through. But if we wanted to go secular sources, there are many historians that can establish throughout the times of the Bible, whenever the Israelites were in hiding, they always went in. They always went to the west, into Africa to hide. There's also historians that have. Trying to remember what's his name right now. I'm forgetting. Adolf was it Adolf Windsor? I think he wrote the book From Babylon to Timbuktu, where he cites over 1 million Jews fled into Africa. You also have historical sources which show that many people who were in West Africa were keeping a lot of the Hebrew customs, from 8-day circumcision to keeping the Sabbath, to not shaving their beards, to literally keeping Torah law. And they were keeping it by word of mouth tradition, not by a book or by a Bible. And so they were keeping a lot of these traditions. There's archaeology which shows phenotypically more what the Israelites look like. And even in the scripture, it talks about phenotypically what Israelites look like. So you start tracing all of these different things. You look at iconoclasm and all these different things which trace along. It gives you secular information. Then you also look at the places where the slave ports came from. Ghana, or was Togo, what was it, Togo, Benin, and in that area you have the, let's see, do I still have it up? The Negro land map, where it's showing you the nation of Judah or Withia, and Benin, which goes back to Judah and Benjamin. And so there's a lot of different sources. You start looking into the Ashanti people and some of the attire that they would wear, literally down to like the priesthoods, all the way down to the little bells and the fringes and the ephods and all of the different stuff that match to the Bible. And there's tons of sources. And then for the Northern Kingdom, many of those which we say like Native Americans and many of our Latino brethren, you have stuff like the Los Lunas Decalogue stone, which is the 10 Commandments in Hebrew, which predate, the conquistadors coming over. You have literally outside of Israel, the Americas have more Hebrew artifacts than any other place on earth. And so we take all of these things and add them all together. And then you start looking through all the curses and all that. And for us, it rings out pretty plain and clean. The character or name of Jesus was not even acknowledged or written until 60 years after his supposed death. Not true. Also, the Bible literally predicts that he's going to come and how he's going to come and all that. So I don't get where that would come from 60 years after his death. That doesn't make any sense. Actually, and please share your sources to that information, because it's very foreign to me. When these ancient manuscripts were written, just transposed later on. And a lot of this stuff is just a matter of when it was translated. It doesn't mean that it wasn't originally written. Just like a lot of people in Christianity or in the Western world believe that the Bible was compiled at the Council of Nicaea. That's incorrect. Council of Nicaea was arguing basically if the doctrine of the of God, basically, is it a theophany? Is it monotheism? Is it the Trinity? That's really what they were arguing in the Council of Nicaea. The compiling of the Bible goes back to Hippocarthage in North Africa. So, I mean, a lot of history has been twisted around. And if you were going against a group of people, you know what? That's what I want to bring up real quick. Because this one's often not brought up very often. Well, we bring it up all the time. But the church, they don't like to go in the Old Testament at all, except for when they go into certain chapters. But funny enough, they go to this chapter all the time, but they never read this verse. And I always thought it was weird that they never go to this verse. So let me put it on the screen. You know where I was going, didn't you?
I wasn't sure because there's so much that the church avoids.
Oh, there's so much. So let's go on to, and I'll go on ahead and read it.
Okay.
Psalms 83 and 1. Keep not thou silence, O God. Hold not thy peace, and be not still, O God. For lo, thine enemies make a tumult. A tumult is a murmuring. They're getting together, and they're all talking. And they that hate thee have lifted up thy head. People don't realize that, yes, even God literally has enemies. He says some of these nations are enemies. If you are enemy to his people, you are enemy to him. They have taken crafty counsel against thy hidden people, the Israelites who are in hiding or who do not have their name at the time. They taken counsel against them and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. That doesn't mean that you're not going to remember the name Israel, but you're not going to remember the people of Israel anymore. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. The tabernacles, and didn't we talk about this before? He's going to have a war with a couple of nations throughout generations. The tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites, of Moab and the Hagarenes, Gebal and Ammon and Amalek. Remember, he's going to have war with Amalek from generation to generation. We know Amalek is not a spirit. Amalek is a nation of people. And the Philistines and the inhabitants of Tyre. Asher also is joined with them. They have holpen the children of Lot Salah. And this is what he's praying for here. Do unto them as unto the Midianites, as to Sisera, as to Jabin at the brook of Kison. What happened is it was ugly. It was ugly what happened to the Midianites there. This is literally what is being prayed for. This is what's being prayed for here. And they don't go to this confederation. So what this is telling you is there are actual nations in the earth. These are their biblical names. And this is the reason why most people do not acknowledge or go by their biblical names anymore, because then it puts a trail to what your people did years and years ago against the children of Israel. And so it is a conservative effort. It is a conspiracy, which the church keeps to not tell the truth. Yeah, and there's so many other scriptures that we can go to besides Deuteronomy 28. There's so much. Vicky says on video, he said, Israelites know if they are descendants and no need to prove. Do you agree? No, I don't agree. I believe that you need to be going into these scriptures to validate that information, because this isn't just like me and Fuzz definitely believe in the whole totality of the Bible. And the Bible will tell you about, you know, wheats and tares. It tells you about the sheep and the goats being mixed together. So it's going to be people who are going to seem like they're Israel, but not be of Israel. And people who do not seem of Israel, that might be of Israel. And that's the reason why you have to try the Spirit by the Spirit. You have to also go by these prophecies. And if you're able to ask further enough back to ancestors to be able to learn different things, that can help solidify, you know, these things. It's important to know these things. So that's the reason why I say go into that. And then I want to go into, what is it? There's like 2 more scriptures that I want to go into. See if I have time to throw that up. Oh, that's right. It's not going to be in there. Let me pull up. Let me back out of this. I need second address. Oh, wrong way. Second address. Actually, you know what? Why don't we go? I want to show, because she asked that question about Israelites. So while we're in second address, let's go into trying to figure it out. You know which one I'm talking about, the account of Arzareth.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. That's what I did wrong. That's not second address. That's in first address, right?
Arzareth is in second.
Arzareth second address. This is what, 13?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. All right. Let's go. Let me see. All right. Let me skip through. Just give me a second. Trying to read down to it. Or do you remember what actual verse it was?
Yeah, it is. Second is 13 and 40. I already have it.
There it is, 40. There it is. Let me put it on the screen.
You might as well load up while you're at it the definition of Arzareth.
We don't have to do that, because I know some people debate it. They're like, well, he didn't actually say that. That was technically. I don't fight him on that. I'm like, either I put this information out. I expect you all to vet me also on this information. I don't expect anybody to just take our words on anything. Just like the teachers which I've learned from, they told me the same thing. They told me, do not take our words for anything. Read the Bible along with us. Go back and research this stuff. So when I hear people that'll make statements like, oh, well, you're just following whatever your teachers do. No, we're not the Christian church. We don't just sit in pews and listen to a pastor just talk to us and for a couple of hours and then just, okay, that's it. No, we have dialogue. That's how we're able to learn. We ask questions. And then we go back and we review the information that we're being taught, so that the scriptures tell us, to take what's good and leave the rest. If it's bearing witness with our spirit, what we're reading, and we're able to substantiate it as truth as best as we can understand, that's where we go with it. So I want you all to follow that same lead. I want you all to vet everything that we talk about. And if you agree with it, cool. If you got questions and you feel like we're not properly answering the questions, then we could try to refer you to somebody we feel is a better teacher who might be able to inform you better. But if you do jog with what we're saying and it makes sense, then okay, then we'll put out more information and we'll let you vet through that also. But yeah, don't take anybody's word for anything. Bible says, put your faith in no man and And so we don't do that. I don't expect you to do that either. But that's why I give you guys the information and let you go from there.
You kind of answered this one scoffer in the chat with that scripture.
Yeah, I mean, well, I've heard people try to say, "Oh, well, this person only listens to you because they're just like under your spell, or you're like a cult. You're following these other people." No, I'm somebody who grew up in the church, grew up with pastors and deacons around me my whole life, badgering them with questions which I could never get answers to. And so I had a very good understanding of most of the Bible for many years. I just had holes that no pastor or theologian could ever answer for me. And then finally I talked to the right people and they were able to say, "Hey, well, have you read this before?" "No, I never read that." "Well, have you looked at this? Or have you read that?" And a big part of it was reading the Apocrypha for myself. Because here's one thing, if you run into most Hebrew Israelites, here's something that I would literally bet you. Almost every Hebrew Israelite that you will ever talk to has read the whole Bible, all 80 books. Whereas most Christians you talk to only can know a couple of verses here and there, what they hear all the time, every Sunday in church. We actually study this because we believe it. Says, Vicky says, "Is it bearing witness to your soul?" Yes, good. All praises, all praises. So let's go on ahead and actually, I see that's a little small. Let me try to make this bigger first before we get going. Zoom in one more time. Zoom in one more. So this one's a little different than the blue letter. Okay, yeah, that should be good, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, going ahead, start with 40, sir.
Book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 13 and verse 40. These are the 10 tribes, which are carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king, whom Salmanasar, the king of Assyria, led away captive. And he carried them over the waters, and so came they into another land. But they took this counsel among themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen, and go forth into a further country, where never mankind dwelt, that they might there keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land. And they entered into Euphrates by the narrow passages of the river. For the Most High showed signs for them, and held still the flood till they were passed over. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely of a year and a half, and the same region is called Arson.
Continue. Go ahead, read 40. Read 46.
Then dwelt they there until the latter time, and now when they shall begin to come, the highest shall stay the springs of the stream again, that they may go through. Therefore sawest thou the multitude with peace.
Thank you, sir. So many people, many historians, well, I won't say historians, many theologians will agree that Arzareth would be America. Also in Christopher Columbus' journal, it comes across, it sounds awfully much like he's saying that Arzareth is America. Now, some people dispute if that was what he actually said, or if that was I'm trying to remember, what was the interpreter that was with him? Was it Delatore? I can't remember the interpreter that was with him, but they say either Christopher Columbus said or one of his interpreters said that this land is Arzareth. And if you actually look in the it's secular sources, the movie 1492, literally they throw it in the movie that yes, he believed that there's a way that there's land in between Europe and Asia. And he's like, "Well, how do you know that?" And he's like, "Because of Esdras." He's like, "Well, Esdras is a Jew." And he's like, you can what did he say? You can get what Harris, I can't remember what he said, but he was like, basically, you can get in trouble for even talking about this right now. And so he told him, hey, you know, what are you talking about? He's basically, the character that they have as Christopher Columbus is basically saying, I believe that there's land over there from reading the Bible. And so what they're alluding to, even Hollywood is alluding to the fact that Arzareth is America. And at that time also, another thing which was a clear giveaway to me is, at that point in time, there were already people living in Africa. There were already people living in Europe. There were already people living in Asia. Those three continents knew nothing about the Americas, not as a whole. Yes, I remember that in the movie, like prophecy had told him exactly. He knew, and if you know who runs Hollywood, obviously those people know also. I'll just say that much without getting myself in too much trouble. You guys have seen some of my older videos. You guys know who owns a lot of Hollywood. And so you also know who put that influence into that movie. That's all I'll say on that one. And then thanks, Fuss. Yes, thank you, Fuss, for putting that in there. Let's go back to second Esdras. While we're already in second Esdras, you know which one I want, because see, we've got to stay on the topic of, we're establishing this point about that he's going to have war with Amalek. Amalek is a descendant of Edom, which is Esau. So let me go to this verse real quick. He's establishing this again.
6 and 9. 6 and 9.
6 and 9. Let me make sure it's on the screen. I put it back on the screen. He's establishing this one more time. In case you forgot, he wants to remind you. Going ahead, sir. Actually, start with 8, because remember back at the beginning, everybody, when we read Genesis 25, and that would have been 25 and 26. So going ahead and read start at 8.
In the book of Second Esdras, chapter 6 and verse 8. And he said unto me, from Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth.
So what this tells you is, wherever it is towards the end of the world, or at so-called the end of the world, which I've talked to Christians, I've talked to Hebrew Israelites, I've talked to Muslims, I've talked to atheists, and a lot of people who have all these different beliefs are all coming to the conclusion that it feels like we're getting close to the end of the world, even if they don't say it's the end of the world, which here it doesn't actually. When you translate that word world, what it says when you translate it back to the Greek, because this part was written in Greek, and if you go to like the Septuagint, it's in the Septuagint as eon, and world breaks down into 3 different words in Greek. It can be eon, oikomene, or cosmos, which, now that you know that, every time it says world in the Bible, you need to go back and double check which word for world they're using there, and if you're getting the proper understanding when you're thinking that saying world. Is that talking about oikomene, the whole entire planet? Is that talking about cosmos, a harmonious arrangement or a government? Or is that talking about an eon or an age or a time period? It's very important when you really start getting into scripture to understand and start paying attention to the differences between what these words mean when you translate them back to the Greek or the Aramaic. And I believe there was one other thing which I wanted to go to. I think I can go back to the blue letter for that one. If I can spell correctly today. You know where I'm going, sir? Well, I don't know if anybody can really read that, what I have it behind me.
I cannot.
I figured you couldn't. But let me read it. Let me drop this down and make this small.
Thank you, Vicky.
Thank you so much, Vicky. And of course, you definitely need a documentary is called Hollywoodism. Oh, I need to check that out. Shall I not in that day, saith the Lord? Let me see if I can find it in there. Because this is
Sounds like it belongs in Malachi.
huh?
It sounds like it belongs in Malachi.
I think it might be is it first verse of Obadiah? No, not first verse. You might be right. I was thinking it was Obadiah, but no. I was right. It's Obadiah 8, 1 and 8. And make sure that this is on the screen. This is the verse that's up behind me. You guys can't see the bottom part, but I will put it on the screen so you guys can see what that verse is behind me. I know people are wondering, like, what's that tank about and all that stuff, and it looks like a lot of fire and everything. But oh, that's right. Let me skip over so I can slide it down. Oh, wait a minute. I grabbed the wrong one. Hold on. Let me drop this and bring up the correct one. Blue letter. How many blue letters do I have up? Oh, there it is. Obadiah 1 and 8. Shall I not in that day, saith the Lord, even destroy the wise men out of Edom, and understanding out the mount of Esau? And thy mighty men, O Teman, shall be dismayed, to the end that every one of the mount of Esau may be cut off by slaughter. Let me skip down to 18. Let's see. And the house of Jacob shall be a fire, and the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau for stubble, and they shall kindle in them and devour them, and there shall not be any remaining of the house of Esau, for the Lord Yahweh has spoken. So when he said that he would have war with them, we showed all the way from Esau to the context going on between Esau and Jacob, to Esau being extrapolated out into the Amalekites, from the Amalekites into Haman, the Agagite, from the Agagites going into the Philip the Macedonian, from Philip the Macedonian all the way to Alexander the Great, not so great in my opinion, and Alexander the Great and the Herodian Dynasty, showing you that they are still there, generation after generation after generation. And some of the other sons, which we even talk about, Omar and Eliphaz and all these different people, and Zepho, went into the Roman Empire. And so when we start talking about the Greco-Roman Empire and what the Greco-Roman or the Roman Empire, which nations came out of that empire, it's not hard to figure out who it's talking about when it's talking about the descendants of Esau. And when it talks about who that Esau is the end of the world. So whoever Esau is the people who are controlling this world. But there's bright news that the world of Jacob is coming afterwards. So that is, I mean, we didn't do too bad. Kept it close to the 2-hour mark. Went a little bit over, but you know, I figured we kept the time down a lot better than last week or so. But that's all I have for tonight. Spirit was on me to go into this. Oh, you put the apocrypha up. Anything would you like to talk about? I mean, anything you'd like to drop or any information you'd like to tell the audience? I noticed Vicky was talking about watching the Sakari video. Anything you'd like to let people know that you have going on in behind the scenes?
So I'm in the middle of studying for my first out of 3 tests to become a Sakari soldier and an official member of the body.
All praises. Yeah, brother, a round of applause.
Thank you.
I feel almost like a proud papa watching his son go off to college.
I'm gonna do it, Coach.
Exactly. I got faith in you. I think those brothers out there are going to be. I think they're getting a good one. They're definitely getting a good one. So we are going to go on ahead and close it out. Thank you, everybody who tuned in to watch tonight, who was in the live stream. Much love to you, Vicky. She says, that's awesome, Jose. Yes,
Thank you.
It is awesome.
Thank you.
And so glad for everybody who will tune in later on, especially if you've watched all the way to this point. Much love. I mean, a lot of people I know will hop into a video for a couple of minutes, but if you truly want to seek out this truth, knowledge, wisdom, you know, as Jose would definitely say, follow the law, statutes, and commandments. That would be one of the first key ways. And then if you are seeking out this knowledge in truth and honesty, and you pray to the Father for the Holy Spirit, you know, or the Ruach HaKodesh to be put out on you, it will be put on you. So that Spirit, ask for the Father to pour that Spirit on you, and start opening your mind to this knowledge, and it will unseal this book, even though it is sealed to so many. I mean, it doesn't mean that it's sealed because there is like a padlock on it. It means your brain is not going to comprehend it until you do certain steps and come back to the Father earnestly, just like a child, and humble yourself. This book is not for the egotistical. So that said, we will leave it there. I want to finish by saying, Call Allah Yahweh, Hashem, Yahweh Shai, and say, Kwam Yasharallah.